Welcome to this channel. I'm your friend Kouki. Okay, wait. Well, okay. Now this video is not gonna be very structured, but I do have the topic, and you can see it in the title. What's the title? I gotta think it up. Wait. So it's gonna be the overview of international players, the countries. Well, because so I was having my muesli with oat milk, and I was also at the same time watching a YouTube video on like an art residency in India. It's a video. It's like a interview video on this small institution in Bangalore in India. So I love exploring this kind of various kinds of videos on YouTube. And so I was watching that. And it struck me at one point as I was like eating my muesli. And I was like, wait a second. What makes India different to China? I know it's kind of like a weird, it's like a different road, totally different thinking road. But that's what struck me. You know, after a little bit of train of thought, I came to that kind of inspiration, and I was like, wait, what is the difference between all kinds of countries? You know, that's from the India to China thing. And then I was like, you see, it actually is about the balancing of the yang energy and the yin energy. So that means the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And only through that, we would already be able to see how certain countries are doing good enough, or say they are ahead of the game. It's a game, huh? Ahead of the game, and how we can foresee, you know, their upcoming trajectories. And also, where can we see they can improve on? You know, in which sectors, in which aspects of it. So that's going to be what this video is going to talk about. All right. Basically, it's dissecting the health conditions, also say the conditions of countries based on energy. And through that, we can already see how they're doing and how will they be doing. Okay. Now, for the first, you know what? Let's do country. Let's go by country first. Like I want to check some countries, so I'm just writing down. So let's do China, India, USA, France. What else? Japan, Germany. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. Because only like through these 6 countries, we would already be able to see a lot of the patterns, and you can even use this way to see into how other countries are doing in the world, around the world. Okay, it can be South Africa, it can be in South America. So this would be the first part of the video, which is talking about countries and the 6 countries that I just mentioned. And for the part 2, I actually want to talk about a political system, the ideology. So basically, how we currently see into the political system would be, you know, on the far left would be communism, and the far right would be fascism, and in the middle is liberalism, right? So that's something I do want to explore regarding, you know, mixing this kind of political system with energy, or saying, yeah, seeing it through energies is quite interesting, huh? For me, yes. Okay, so that would be what we're going to talk about in part 2. And I think that's it, you know. There's a lot of talk about, there's a lot to explore already, so let's get started. Now we are in, okay, let's get started into part 1, okay? Part 1, countries. Well, so you know what? Let me start with talking about how the masculine energy and the feminine energy would show up in a sense. So just briefly, okay, just briefly. So basically, if for anything to show up in a masculine way, I'm gonna use this as masculine and this hand as feminine. Okay, so if anything shows up as masculine, basically they would have much more structure. They would have much more a sense of control. Not necessarily bad. Okay, it's just that why are you down? Not necessarily bad. It's just that they would be in a more disciplined way. Okay, disciplined, structure, control. So to shape any kind of forms, any kind of institutions, to give it a framework, so then things could flourish according to the direction. Does that make sense? According to the framework. So that's what masculine energy is for, in brief. Now, when it comes to feminine energy, this is feminine energy. The feminine energy is when it nurtures. It's more about creativity. It's more about the moving in between and not so bounded by that much of the rigidity. Okay, it has this sort of flexibility in feminine energy, so it's more about emotion. Okay, it's more about emotion. This one deals with more intellectual things. Okay, now this one is more emotion. And the feminine energy is for fertility. Okay, it's for fertility now, but it has to work together with the masculine energy, where the masculine energy has to provide a stable ground for the feminine energy to grow, to expand. Okay, that's the expansive energy. That's the creative energy, where creations come from, is the feminine energy. That's how like women give birth to children. That's creation. The creative energy is the feminine aspect. Okay, so like art, that's creativity, even any kind of emotion. So it could be theater, right? There's also forms of art, different sorts of expression related to the nurturing aspect, the cultivation aspect. Even agriculture is a sort of fertility, is a sort of feminine energy. But agriculture is a good example of seeing how utilizing the masculine energy to give structure, to give organization to such fertility, to such fertile energy, to create the products, the crops, the nurturing aspect of it. Okay, you see that's how they work together. That's how agriculture could give civilizations the expansive possibilities. That's how humanity, when we started with agriculture some many years ago, that's how the civilization began to flourish, because that's balance. That's with masculine energy and feminine energy together. You got to have certain frameworks setting up in organized manner, right? To look into how things work and learn from it and build structure. And at the same time, allow nature to work through these kind of frameworks to bring in abundant crops. That's feminine. Nature's feminine energy, right? There's feminine energy there. Fertility. But then you need certain methods to structure it into the way to allow energy, the feminine energy, to run through the system in order to help it flourish. Good? Makes sense? So that's in brief how we can see energy is when it runs through any kind of systems. So now let's get into the countries. Countries, let's start with China. Well, China is a heated topic. Everybody's looking at, I was going to say it, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's looking at China right now because it's geopolitically speaking, it is one of the biggest players on the world stage. So how we can see into China is that, you see, China is a good example of balancing the masculine and the feminine energy. So whenever anything, I'm not even just talking about country, when anything or anyone, a person, individual, is in balance to the masculine and the feminine energy, this means efficiency. Efficiency. Efficiency comes from sustainable productivity. Does it make sense? Efficiency comes from sustainable productivity. It means that if you are not in the long run being productive, there's no really efficiency, right? If one day you're like highly productive and then you just burned out, and then so for the rest of the 3 days you have to rest, and then you have another peak again on Friday, then you really are just like this, right? So it's not sustainable. It is not sustainable productivity. In order for anything to be efficient, any system to be efficient, it has to be sustainably productive, meaning momentum. A very stable momentum would lead to long-term success. That applies to personal development, that also applies to any sort of institution or national growth. It requires momentum. It requires consistent development and balancing. Okay, so now for China, it has quite it serves as a very good example for us to look into here, because China has a masculine governmental system, where, however, where's the feminine here? The feminine aspect of China is more in the people. The people are more feminine. The people are more in their creative energy rather than in the masculine energy. Okay, why? Now, what can we see? What are certain examples of this? If you look at TikTok in China, or any kinds of, or even the Red, RED, the Red apps, if you have ever looked into it, there's all sorts of creative contents on these platforms. So meaning the people are very, very dedicated to creating things, creativity, okay? So that is the feminine energy at work, when we can see a certain, as how it manifests into. This is a major example that we can see. Now, more other than this, cuisine, food. So there are many types of cuisines in China, and they also, we can even see how these people are creatively creating new kind of recipes, and also food displays and editing techniques on their videos, and also documenting the traditions of their own culture. So it means that they are actively preserving and reviving and sharing this kind of traditional values within their community, as well as sharing it online, and also making it into a way that is creatively expressed. So all this we can see, the people are in feminine energy, much more. Okay, now that's for content creation, right? That's for content creation. On the other side of the feminine energy that is expressed in this country would also be the business aspect, in a sense, because business is actually more towards the masculine than the content creation, in a sense. Okay, because when it comes to business, there's much more of a structure there. Okay, like if it's actually grounded to have certain foundation on it, certain company built upon this, then it involves structure, right? Then that is masculine. But even if for the content creation, there are lots of content creators, they turn their contents into business. So that is, at the same time, there's a structure there. They have organized manners, organized schedules, organized structures to help them to produce contents or produce any kind of products consistently. So there's a momentum there. You see, they have a schedule to follow on each of their own. So this creativity, we can see it through the content creation, but at the same time, when they combine this creative energy with business, meaning framework, there comes a balance. Okay, so that's why they can grow so fast. It's because they mix it well. They mix it up well. You see, that's why I said it's called efficiency. Whenever anything is in balance, it is in sustainable productivity. So then, naturally, there would be quite a strong, efficient momentum built because of that. Now, this framework, this masculine energy, if we see it as not business, but as governmental structure, then we can see how China also exerts certain regulations and controls as framework to regulate and stabilize the society. So it's more of the, if we have to say which part has more of the controlling energy, then that would be the government, then the people, right? So it is actually a good balance if we see in this way, like how it can build so fast, this country. It's because this side, which is the government, would be more in the masculine energy, but for the people, they are much more in the feminine energy, the creating things, production, right? Now, that's a good balance. So that's why they could grow so fast in the last few decades. And it's evident that we can see, from the energetic perspective, it is true, because they do serve as kind of like counterbalancing forces on each side. And when they balance each other, it goes really fast because it's in balance. Okay. Now, if we talk about, this is it for China. Let's talk about India. India is a very interesting case because I was watching that video, right? It's about India, art residency. The thing about India is, I'm not. Please correct me if I'm wrong, huh? If anyone has any opinions on it, be it on any country, be it on China, on India, on USA, France, Japan, Germany. Okay, whichever one you have opinion on, please feel free to share below. And I just want to say I'm not being disrespectful. It's just if there's something that not resonating with what you expect or what you feel, please let me know, because I mean no harm here. It's just I'm expressing what I see, okay, from what I understand. So India is, to me, in more of it involves much more chaos in a sense, because it doesn't have a very strong structure. Okay, it doesn't have a very strong masculine energy. It doesn't. Well, it seems like it is, but it's not. It's not. The entire country is more in a state of feminine energy than masculine energy. Why? Because if we see it, because when feminine energy is not balanced by the masculine energy in a balancing way, okay, like say this is the middle, okay, I'm the middle, say I'm serving as the middle now. Now, India would be possibly like this. So the masculine energy is not like this. You see, if that is then balance, you see, right? That's balance, but masculine is like this, but feminine is this. What happens when the feminine energy is too much? Chaos. Chaos, because when there's no structure, it would cause chaos. When anything is creative, when consciously streamlined, the feminine energy can be very, very productive. But when anything is not consciously structured or streamlined, meaning we need masculine energy, right? To streamline, to structure, to construct certain frameworks, to contain the feminine energy. When there's no such structures, it causes chaos. Because feminine energy is very flexible. And without structure, it can become chaotic. But when consciously streamlined, it becomes creativity and productivity. Okay? Make sense? So if we see India, it is more in the feminine state. It is not so much in the masculine. All right? That means imbalance. Imbalance. There is a lot of chaos. However, it means a lot of opportunities. A lot of opportunities. Yes. It might be quite an unpopular opinion, but it is my opinion. It is actually a lot of opportunities. Now, think about it this way. When anything is in chaos, what does it mean? It means it has a lot of feminine energy, right? That's what I said. What is feminine energy when being streamlined consciously? Productivity, abundance, right? So the more a system has its feminine energy, means that it actually contains so much creativity. It contains so much possibilities. What does it mean? It means once it's streamlined, properly, organized properly, this could be an literally, what do you call it? Like a boom, like that. I don't know how to find a word. Find a word for me. It's like a boom, boom, like really boom. But you have to do it in a very careful and meticulous way to understand how this entire feminine energy, this chaos, separating the cultural aspect and the human aspect of it, but not harming anyone. Like it is an art. It is an art to dissecting into this feminine chaos, but understanding each part of the chaos and nurture each of them while giving them structure, and so they can flourish side by side. And so gradually, on the overview of it, this feminine energy would be this. So we're not reducing the feminine energy. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're not reducing. You're not reducing to match it up with the masculine energy here. No, you're increasing the masculine force to balance with the feminine energy. Why? Because if you reduce the feminine energy, it means that there's less creativity, there's less force there. No, that's not what we want. If we want a boom, right? We don't reduce that. We gotta apply more of this masculine force. So to counterbalance with this, give it more structure over time, meaning, and so it would become a very huge force on the whole. And in balance, when they're balanced, right? So that's why I said India has a lot of potentials, like huge potentials, but it needs a lot of structure. It has to be applied in a very careful way, because India is a place where it's a country that has a lot of cultures involved, religions and different kinds of values between communities. Like for each community, they have their own values, they have their own traditions, they have their own, how should I say, their own cultural agenda even. So it's delicate. It's delicate, but once all of this can be combined and, mutually understood, it can become a really huge force. So that's why I said chaos doesn't mean, that's what I mean. Chaos is not something bad. It holds immense potentials. Immense. So, and as India has such a status, like such a state where it holds so much feminine energy. But now there's another thing that what I would say is that because India has so much feminine energy, they are not expressed in a constructive way at this point. What would manifest is if you're from India, you might, please correct me if I'm wrong. What I notice is that a lot of the feminines, I would say women, even say, you could see a lot of women in India. They are either very, very very, very kind of like weak in a sense, okay? Weak as in like fainted, okay? Or like I need someone to rescue me, I would need someone to protect me, okay? This kind of weak, but I'm not saying it's wrong, okay? I'm just describing it. So it's either they are very, very weak, like a damsel in distress kind of energy, or they could be very, very calculating. They can be very calculating. And that is what I see, because I've heard of cases where certain women would utilize marriage to get money from their husband, okay? And how they do it is to utilize the loopholes in the laws to get the money. Because here's the thing, the legal system in India, they kind of tend to protect the weak, protect women, the children. And so certain women would utilize this to take advantage of this system and accuse men of, say, certain harassment or things like this in order to get money. But in a lot of cases, these men have not committed any of such harassments to the women. It's just that the women utilize or take advantage. It's a better word, take advantage of such a system to commit certain crimes. Actually, this is frauds, right? These frauds. So this is what would happen when the feminine energy is very, very strong in a community and not having the masculine energy balancing it. Oh, okay, so what would happen? A lot of gossips, a lot of mind games in the emotional way, a lot of emotional tactics, strategies to scam, it could be love scam, right? It could be a lot of this happening because it's the feminine energy is at work, but not being positively streamlined and expressed in a productive way. Okay, so this is what could happen. So this is for India, and now for USA. USA is, this is very interesting. USA is literally like this. This is the masculine, and US has a very strong masculine energy in their society, and very little feminine energy. So it's kind of like, this is India, this is USA. So what would happen when the masculine energy is too much on this extreme, right? And not enough feminine energy to counterbalance it, is that it's much more about the intellectual. It's much more about how we can advance in a more business way, finance, about numbers, right? It's all about numbers, much more about numbers. Numbers, finance, technology, politics, strategies, tactics, but in a masculine way. In a masculine way. It's not playing with emotion. It's not playing with emotion. Not much. It's much more about strategy. It's much more about strategy. It's much more about gaining control over anything. It's much more about I need certainty. It's much more about how should I say? It's much more about the frameworks that they need to establish, and they need other people to follow. They need other people to follow through their structure. So it's a very structured mindset. I hope it's making sense. But when any system is in this way, there's very little flexibility, because this one represents flexibility. Feminine energy represents flexibility. So when there's not much flexibility here, there's not much empathy. There's not much empathy, because feminine energy is the nurturing energy. It is a caregiver. So it has empathy. It takes care of other people. And also, feminine energy brings people together, forming community. So now, why would I say that? Now, if you go to India now, you would see they work and live in communities most of the time. Communities for Indians are very important, and that makes up kind of like their entire cultural upbringing, their backgrounds. Okay, so that's feminine energy at play. A home, they feel home, they're well fed, by their communities, by their families. So that's what community is like. But then when it comes to the USA, they don't really have much communities coming together, unity. They don't really have this sense, because they don't have much feminine energy here when it comes to the entire system. So it's more about individual, it's all about personal gain, it's more about personal aspiration, and not much working as a togetherness community wise, because this is what feminine energy would exert when any system has has much more or less the balancing of it. And so what we would see is they focus much more on the money thing, the numbers thing, power, intellectual, a lot of intellectual. And that is why you can see how India and USA would be quite working together, okay, on technology. The reason is, I'm just speaking from the energetic perspective, okay? The reason is, you see, India needs more masculine energy, and USA needs more feminine energy. So they kind of like, it's a good balance, isn't it? Like this. So this is the feminine energy, they need this. That's the USA. Is it making sense? So we would see where would they overlap. A lot of them would overlap in the in technology, AI, data, and also the anything about gadgets, digital things. And it is quite evident, because a lot of the electronics, USA would have to outsource to other countries to help them to produce, right? And that's exactly another example, which is, you see, USA is in a more masculine way, right? Masculine state. What is this? It's feminine. And what it means is that they don't have their own productivity. They don't have their own nurturing. They don't have their own resources, in a sense. Because feminine energy is for abundance, it's for fertility, to grow something, right? But since they don't have much of this, USA, so what would happen is that they have to outsource, right? That's why they have to outsource. Outsource in the other places to help them to produce. That is the feminine energy. That's India. Right? That's India. Okay? So you will see this balancing here because they don't have this, so they have to find India to match up with them. And that is a good match in an energetic perspective. Now for India, they don't have much structure. So they need kind of like a business thing. They need this kind of system, to help them to grow the fertility, to have the fertility. And so they would lean towards the USA because they already have a very strong framework and structure established, right? So it's kind of a mutually benefiting state if we see from the energetic perspective. And that is also one reason why USA has to outsource, because they don't have that feminine energy in them as much. And they need more. And so if they want to expand, they have to find other feminine energy to match up with their overpowering masculine energy, right? If they are like way here, they have to find something way here to kind of like, balancing. Or they would find other places that are willing to give or mix their feminine energy with the USA. So it could be like they collect places around the world that is operating more or less in the feminine energy resources. Okay, mind your resources, remember. So you know what I'm trying to say. So anything that has resources, that's feminine energy. They will accumulate that to in order to have, because they only have structure. They don't have resources, so they can't do anything with their resources, right? So they need that. Okay, make sense? Good enough. Now France is an interesting case. France is fun. France is funny. Like if we use energy to see into it, energetic balance to see into it, France is much more towards the feminine side. Because you see, if you go to France, it's so slow, nice and beautiful, and it's so tasty, delicious, it's the way of living, right? Like if you go there to Europe, it's a very nice place to be because it's very chill and relaxed, and everywhere you look is pleasant for the eyes. So naturally, because they have a very strong sense of living, well-being in a sense, how they conduct their day-to-day activities, they would surround with more enjoyment, so more relaxed, more flexibility, that would be, and more art, more fashion. That's feminine energy, okay. So that's why I said France is much more, since a long time ago actually, even since Marie Antoinette, you can see how the society is mainly based on cuisine, art, creative expression, right? They have a lot of thinkers, a lot of philosophers, a lot of artists. So this is a cultural heritage, and also how their energetic signature has been since quite a long time ago, and it's been stabilized in a sense and solidified over time, over the past few centuries, I would say. So what we can see is that France is leaning more towards the feminine energy, right? But it's not like here, it's more here because they do have a certain structure in them. However, they're not like this. They're more like this. You see what it is? It's that they are much more, they don't have much more of a chaos like India. But chaos doesn't mean bad, it actually means possibilities, but it depends on how you manage it. The chaos is here for India. The feminine energy is like this. Whereas for France, it's much more like here, like this. This is France. This is how France is. What does it mean? It means that the force would not be as strong as anything is like this. Okay? The force is not a strong force. It's not as balanced. No, it's not as balanced because it's leaning towards feminine. How can we see it from here? Because you see, France, it has a lot of creative expression, right? But it doesn't have much action. It doesn't have much action as in putting in frameworks or putting in any kind of solid policies such and such. They don't have, the system is slow. The system is slow. It's not efficient. But this is quite productive when it comes to creative expression. So what you will see is a lot of people proposing ideas. But proposing ideas does not mean masculine energy. Proposing ideas means feminine. It's just you're saying it out, you're expressing yourself. That is feminine. But you have to anchor this kind of energy with the masculine energy, which is putting all these ideas into frameworks and actual systems and models. Only then it comes into a balanced state. So if you only have expressions, you only have, it could be through artwork, it could be through speaking, it could be through, what else? It could be through, oh my, wait, a blank, wait, what else? Expressions, it can be through singing, whatever it is, okay? So, or dancing, dancing, movement, right? It cannot be solidified, it cannot be so grounded for the general, in the general sense. So, meaning this society would be moving in a slower momentum, okay, because it's towards this. There's not much structure built to form any kind of structured directions to allow this kind of creativity to be able to run through and to solidify into a certain, say, program or certain way of guiding the newer generations to adopt, to learn, and to express themselves while being able to contribute to the society. Is it making sense? Okay. So what we would see if we draw another example from the France case study, we can see that who would be more successful when it comes to you and I would be seeing them. Okay, now I'm not talking about way of living right now. I'm talking about the balancing of between the masculine and the feminine. When these two energy, they are balanced, you would see the results. When we see results, it means that these are balanced. What would be one example? That would be luxury brands in France. Now, what they did, the luxury brands, let's maybe LVMH, that is an entire corporation, right? LVMH, this is masculine energy. Structure, company, system, hierarchy, categorization, all this, business plans, business strategies, right? This is all frameworks. You can see all are frameworks for an entire corporation. That is masculine energy. Now, what they did is that because France has a lot of creative ideas, creativity, so with such a corporation having strong structures, then these creative ideas can be physicalized into products, into campaigns, into different kinds of creative outputs that can be seen by others, in a sense. Okay, I'm just using this LVMH as an example, because it doesn't have to be a big corporation. It can be someone who makes baskets, who makes handbags, on their own. But it's just that it might not be as productive because they don't have strong skills in business planning. They don't have strong skills in management. They might have a stronger skill set in making handbags, right? But not for this. So when it comes to LVMH, why is it that they can be so successful? Is because because LVMH harness the energy, the feminine energy of France or of Europe in general, that is very creative, that is very aesthetically focused design, okay, all of this. And they use their business skills to balance with this. And so coming together, it would become a huge luxury corporation. And we can see the result of it. So what we can learn from here is that whenever you see, it's good to perceive how oneself is as a person, right? What kind of a state you are more in? Are you more in masculine, or you're more in feminine, or you're imbalanced? And if you're more in masculine, well, of course, imbalance is always the best, the ideal state where we are all working towards, right? So this is kind of a lifelong project for each of our own. However, we can also see how if I were to be in more of masculine energy, what kind of activities of feminine energy can I use to counterbalance, my too much masculine energy, so that to bring myself into balance. And that is going to be fast, because it's productivity, right? It's sustainable productivity that's efficient. So yeah, that's what France is like. I'm going to quickly go through Japan and Germany, because it's already almost an hour of video. Japan is I would say Japan is quite an interesting case. It has a lot of creativity, but the masculine aspect of it is very concentrated. It's not even just strong. It's that the feminine, you know how I see it is that Japan has a lot of creativity because of extreme masculinity. It's like the entire society is in such a masculine state energy that they cannot help but find various ways to escape from this kind of extreme masculinity. And that's why there are lots of creativity here. The people are trying their best to counterbalance this through creativity. Does it make sense? It's a different way than the case of what I just mentioned, all the countries above. Why are you down? Up. It's a different case. So that's why we would see how the Japanese, a lot of animation, a lot of manga, a lot of all sorts of creative outputs would be, plenty of them, abundant amount of collections of such creativity from Japanese culture, from design to art to anime. It's their way of coping with the masculine energy in their culture. It's not much in a sense of the government when it comes to this. when it comes to the society of Japan, is the cultural masculine energy that's kind of like immersed in their day-to-day life. What can we see? How can we see? What is one example? Is their etiquette. The etiquettes, like they have to bow, right? They have to have a lot of strict rules when it comes to the eating habits or the eating etiquette. Even when it comes to talk to certain elders, to elders, they have to change the way of vocabularies, right? The way that they greet. So there are lots of rules in the day-to-day life. There are lots of rules in the office, a workplace, lots of stress. That means it's extreme masculinity in their day-to-day living, in their cultural aspect, not so much in governmental. It's much more in the day-to-day living. So these kind of cultural extreme masculinity would cause people, because it's people, cultural means people, right? It's very sociological. People living in such a construct, they have to find a way to express, they have to find a way to escape, in a sense. It's escapism. So these would cause them to express in various ways to counterbalance this cultural stress from here. And that's why they can sometimes be quite extreme when it comes to the creativity. Like they can do, yes, Japanese, they have such a stamina, or even such a they have such a mindset that they have to do it in a perfect way. It's like perfectionist in a sense, right? But it's more of craftsmanship. It's more of craftsmanship. However, we can see where this perfectionistic mentality comes from. It's from extreme masculinity in a culture. What is extreme masculinity? Control. Control means perfection. So that's why there's such a perfectionistic mindset in the culture, causing everyone to have to try to chase perfection, even when it comes to their own art form, their own work. But well, that would then generate a lot of creative expressions, right? When people try to make themselves feel better in such a cultural context where it has a lot of extreme masculinity. Okay, stress, a lot of stress. And I think you can see it if you happen to enjoy Japanese cultures and their creative outputs as well, right? Yeah, so that would be for Japan. Let's see Germany. Germany is Germany is very structured. This culture. Germany has a much more, I would actually say Germany is kind of like this. Japan is this. Oh no, Japan is different case. I don't really think Japan can be put on this kind of spectrum. We can't really use this thing to measure Japan. Because Japan, if Japan has to be put on this kind of way of expressing like what I have been doing, it's kind of like this. You see, the head is like this. It's quite distorted because it is more about a cultural aspect of it, but not so much. Yeah, it's just so immersed into their entire cultural context, the masculinity. So it becomes like, like that. Well, for Germany is more towards the masculine side of it. That's why we can see how when they talk, it's very literal. Like how Germans express themselves, pretty much literal, and they would not. This is how I feel. They don't really express themselves. Well, I would say they like to express in more rhetorical or sarcastic ways. So it is in a sense more of dry humor. So dry humor is much more of the masculine energy. Masculine humor is quite dry humor, like dad's joke. Dad, the father, dad, dad, dad's joke is quite dry humor, so it's more masculine energy, and that's how I perceive Germany. They are quite balanced, actually. They are quite balanced. They do have their feminine energy at play, however, still much more masculinity in the general context of the society. However, what is happening when it comes to Germany is that they probably need more feminine energy, because the economy is going down because they don't have enough fresh ideas. They don't have enough fresh workforce in their current society right now. So meaning they don't have enough fertility. They have all the machines, they have all the methods, all the techniques, all the knowledge when it comes to machine building, or engines, okay, so and so on. So these are all masculine, but they don't have the workforce. They don't have the resources. Labor is one of them, right? So they don't have it, and they don't have, they don't have like the actual natural resources. That's another thing adding to it. So if they don't have such resources, then they would not be able to thrive. So it's like the machines all would be stagnant because they're here, but they can't be used, right? So they need resources. It's quite a similar case when it comes to the USA, right? They have a lot of these machines. They have a lot of no, that's different. When it's similar, but it's different, because Germany is more about a hardware. Like they actually build things. Okay, they build the hardware, the engines. They also build models. They also build structures. Even when it comes to computing, okay, computing things. But they build more systems. They build systems, but not so much of programming. Does it make sense? Because like they do innovation in a way to put things together. That's what Germany is very strong at. They build things to put things together. They're good at organizing things, but USA no. USA no. USA is not good at organizing things. USA is good at strategizing. They're just using different ways of this is different ways of expressions when it comes to masculine energy, right? So strategy is one thing, organization is another thing. Germany is good at organizing, whereas for USA is good at strategizing, not so much organizing. So that's the difference. I think that's where we can see. And I think it's important for all of us to know what is one's weakness, what is one's strength, and so you can find a way to work together with other countries and with the intent of peace, like how we can work together. That's a good way of seeing it, right? Not to exploit another country or other people, but to come together and see what we can exchange and to benefit everyone. And that is my intent of sharing this video as well. Now, I think, you know what? Let's go into the part 2. Because it is a very long video. Now, part 2. Part 2 is political system. What I was saying was about, like on this side is communism, right? And then on this side is fascism. And in the middle is liberalism. I was thinking, because I don't actually have an answer. It's just I was thinking to myself. I was like, well, this is a spectrum that we have been taught. We have been told this way. But then I was like, well, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I feel like it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be the spectrum. It's like this side is communism, this side is fascism, this is liberalism. I feel like we can kind of play around with it more. That what if we have an extension from, now this is communism, right? What if we can have an extension out to here? Or extension out of here. So that would be another one, right? Like this is like on the right and this is on the left. And what if we have an extension out here, or an extension here, or an extension here, right? It's about mixing things, creating new models to help humans, to help us to thrive in a more positive way. Because what we have been taught, or what we have been told, they are all just theories and models. They are societal models, or societal models, right? But it's all about through learning, through interactive learning, like how we can brainstorm together, like what is your need, what is my need, what is her need, what is his need, what is their need, right? Then we can come together understanding through this interaction. We can then construct a new kind of model that fits, everyone's needs, and we can help each other out in order to form peace. So a new model can actually be formed. It doesn't have to be like, oh, it has to come from this side, or it has to come from this side. No, it can be coming from all sides. Group party A, party B, party C, party D, party E, right? It's like to come together and discuss what I need, and can you provide? Can we exchange? And it's through this process of interactive construction, only then we will come to a new kind of model for everyone to benefit from, right? To pretty much that. So that's it. That's what I want to say. Because if we see the countries that what I just said, what I just mentioned, all this kind of this, that for Japan. So basically, everyone needs their own thing, right? They have a certain need. They need to balance it. And throughout this process of balancing, we can actually set the intent of, okay, we actually want to form peace and unity. And so these would then manifest in ways that would benefit both countries and all the people, and even to the whole world. Now, last one I actually want to mention is Singapore. Singapore is an interesting one because what I realized that Singapore is a very good case study. I just thought about it. Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's mention Singapore. Because Singapore, I was thinking about, what would Singapore be if, in the energetic perspective? Singapore, I would say, is the government is already quite in a balanced state, although with a bit more masculinity. So Singapore can't be expressed through this spectrum that I was using, okay, this hand thing. Singapore, it has to be expressed in like this and this, so at the same time. So imagine this is here, right? So hold it, it's still here, and this side has another one. All right, does it make sense? So that there are 4 hands like this. Let's do this. Yeah. So basically, there are 4 hands happening, or 4 fingers happening. Meaning, one is masculine, one is feminine. This is masculine, this is feminine. Say, okay, this one. Oh. So what I want to say is that this is the government. So the structure, the societal structure, this is for the people. How I see is that they are both quite imbalanced on their own. So the people are more or less quite imbalanced, like they actually imbalance, not imbalance. So this is the government. They have the masculine energy enforced, which would be the laws, the structure, the framework, and they would also have certain flexibility when it comes to incentive programs, taking care of the people, healthcare system, food system, ensuring the quality of the food, education system, nurturing the next generations. They have this done in a very conscious, and they try their best to do it in a balanced way. So that's why I said they do, because they do care about their people. So that's feminine energy. And they do have strong structure when it comes to societal frameworks to enforce their ideas. Unlike what I mentioned about France, right? It is kind of a different way of doing things. So they care, and they also do it. They enforce system to show their care. Okay, that's why it's quite balanced. It moves really fast. They are the guiding force for the entire society. Now, this is where the people would be. They have a strong sense of commitment to their society. They follow the regulations. They follow the rules. This is civic sense. They are very conscious with protecting their own country. They're very nationalistic in a sense. And the way that they do it would be to following the rules that is in unity. That's masculine energy. They follow through the structure. Feminine energy is when they do care about themselves as well. They also do show a lot of care to their communities. They do care about, they help each other out. They're very friendly in general. And they even not even just to them within their own community, they're also very friendly to foreigners. They're very helpful. So you can see how this feminine energy is, because it's nurturing. It shows up in their entire communities. They give back. They share. We can see it in the hawker centers in the Singapore hawker centers, where this is basically the food centers that they would spend a lot of time in as residents in Singapore, where they eat, and it's quite affordable. So you can also go with your families and meet friends there. So you can see a lot of communities going on in this society in Singapore. That's feminine energy, where people would go. And so you see, when they follow the laws and they follow the rules, they respect each other, and they also nurture each other in the sense of helping and being part of the community, they are more or less in balance, okay? More or less as a resident, as a citizen. So together, this country is strong because they have a strong sense of community. Now, this right, a strong sense of community, feminine energy. They also have a strong sense of laws and regulations, and they do follow through. And that's strong momentum. That's strong boundaries and strong force. At the same time, is productive. So I hope this video finds you well. And if any kind of opinions or comments, please feel free to comment below. I would love to read them. And thank you so much for your patience, your support, and your love. And I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.